City office stayed open until 5:30. Melody here. So if it's 5 and if Mike's there. He can hear that. Mike, if you're there, I think it's 5 and sounds like we got a couple online and a couple here, so we could get going.
I am here. Who do we have? Sorry, I got my screen shrunk down a little bit, so I only got. Okay, Mark's on. Is Andy on? Andy, are you on?
Yeah, I'm present. I'm at
Oh,
the
yeah.
building
In the house.
in the house.
So we're just missing Randy then. Okay. So we do have a quorum, correct?
We do.
Yeah, there's 4 of you.
Okay. Are we recording?
Yes, sir.
We are good?
Yeah, Mike, you're good.
Okay. Thank you. Welcome everyone to our June Power Board meeting. Appreciate everybody that's live. I'm sorry I had to be in Provo, so I am on this. But did everyone have a chance to look over the agenda?
Yes.
Yep.
Any questions, comments?
No.
Nope.
Then can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll go ahead and motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Oh,
Okay, so it was Andy motioned and Mark seconded. So Todd, do you want to start us out?
Spriggs, aye.
Andy,
Palmer, aye.
Mark,
Hauser, aye.
and Dinsmore, aye. Okay. Minutes are next. Did everyone get a copy of those and get a chance to look through that?
Yes.
Questions, comments?
None here. Looks good to me.
Okay, motion and
I'll move to approve.
Okay, Mark, motion to approve. I'll go ahead and second it.
okay, Mark motioned and Todd seconded. Andy, do you want to start us out?
Palmer, aye. Approve.
Mark,
Hauser, aye.
Todd,
Spriggs, aye.
and Dinsmore, aye. Okay. New business update from the New Scale tour. You just want to start commenting, or do you want to make a comment, Rick, first, or?
No, my thought on that was just since you took the time to do that, it might be good just to get some feedback from those that you and Todd. What you learned, what you thought, any questions. Hopefully, it was helpful. So that was the reason there, and then you could report back to the other board members.
Okay. We let's see, it was myself and Todd, Randy, Councilman Ivy, and who?
Jake Bennett.
What was that?
It was Jake Bennett.
And Jake from the city power. We had the opportunity to go up to Oregon and see what they're doing with the New Scale. It was pretty amazing. I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to Todd first. And Todd, if you want to give us your thoughts.
Okay, yeah. As far as I'm concerned, I thought it was very informative, very well done. It was interesting to actually see what it looks like, obviously on a little smaller scale. but then to ask them questions about how it functions and the stability of it, and really how safe it is and how effective it is. The research I've done, I've thought that this is the way to go without any question, but after visiting the plant, I was even more reassured that really that's the best answer that we have for green energy and cost effective and consistent energy. Interesting to see how they replace the spent what are they, transformers or the cartridge, the rods, and just ask specific questions on that, what the problems would be if it went down or how it could go down, worst case scenarios. And really they just had an answer for every question we threw at them. And sounds like they're on track. Everything is on track for being done when they said it's going to be done, and in a cost effective manner, what they tell us it's going to cost. It was interesting. In fact, that day we were there was the day they went public on the stock exchange, and that was interesting. So I don't think the company is going anywhere. Seems to be a solid project, and it was very informative and good opportunity to go up and visit it.
It was, thank you. We've spent a lot of years looking at this project and finding sources for future energy. And it's amazing. 3 years ago, who would have thought where we were at today on pricing and availability, and this seems to be definitely a source, one source of many, and options to look at and to definitely be involved in. I was impressed. It was nice to finally put a lot of faces, and obviously, Todd, tell you that people a lot smarter than us behind this. And it was great to meet them. It was great to see up close what the company was, the technology behind it, the processes that they've gone through in testing it and going through and seeing that it does work. And if you get a chance to go, when you go and see that control room, I've never seen that many monitors in one room to watch and to the process behind it. So it was a lot of fun. It was a whirlwind. It was up and back. We didn't have a second to rest. They had us the minute we pulled in. We dropped off our luggage and met with a lot of the higher ups. Woke up the next morning and we were on our way to the tours and to the university. It was really neat to see all the process behind it at the university too. But yeah, I don't know. Anybody got questions?
No, I'm sad I missed it. It seemed like it was a great trip and very informative. So no, I don't have any questions.
And it won't be the last opportunity to go. I think they're hoping to do it like quarterly or something. So as those opportunities come up, we'll definitely make everyone aware that wasn't able to. I know the mayor was wanting to try to go and wasn't able. And so there'll be more opportunities to do that.
I think it was, oh my gosh, what was I going to say? I can't remember now. It was, I do know. The group that we were with, there was, what would you say, 30, 40 of us, Todd?
Yeah.
it wasn't all people that are already involved. I mean, they were showing new power boards and power associations and groups this technology. It was amazing to see. I mean, like I said, we've been looking at it for what have we been 3-4 years now, Rick? And I mean, these guys were looking at it. I mean, brand new. This is the first time they toured it, and obviously, um, very early in the process. And but with them and the comments they were making on how this was going to answer a lot of their concerns in their associations, in their groups and stuff, it was really impressive and really good to see. So. I think out of all of it, probably one of the frustrating things is how um, they could go a lot faster, but with the some of the government regulations that we have to go through, the frustration that we're going to see over the next. I mean, what are we still 3-4 years out before we even get into this? We're probably what 2 to 3 years before we even start building the plant. It was like how come we can get other things approved so quickly in months through the government, but this is going to take, it's going to be a good 7-8 years to get this process through. So hopefully things can change there. So
I can't remember what they said their permit was with the government, but it was like 800 pages or something like that, but in the hundreds of thousands of dollars just to pull permits and go through the approval process. And I don't remember how many years. Rick probably knows better than I, but it took years just to go through the permitting process. So yeah, they're making sure that it's definitely safe and a viable option for power.
it was a million pages is what it was, the application, but then all the support material they had to supply. They said it was millions and millions of pages of documentation. So yeah, I don't know. Any other questions? If they do have opportunities to go again, I would highly suggest it. Like I said, if you're wanting answers, it was really nice to be able to talk to them. It was also, it made it a little bit more clear to me. I mean, even if all the stuff that we've been shared, the processes that they're going to go through and what they're going to accomplish with it. So.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, if you have an opportunity, it was definitely worth it. I'd say the only thing to do though is it's really tight to put 5 grown men in a car. That back seat was a little tight there. So I'd say do that different.
We got very well acquainted.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. At 2:00 in the morning. So, any other comments, questions?
Nope.
Okay, well, then on to some regular business. Rick, you want to give us an operations and generation reports?
Sure. And again, thanks again for those that went. And we'll probably figure out something a little better so you're not coming in at 2 or 3 in the morning.
It worked out good. It really did work out good because it was a fast trip, but really it didn't take as much time, and we got up there and home back and stuff. But no, thank you for letting us do it. That, like I said, it was a great opportunity.
Okay. This will be mostly reporting on items. Next month, I anticipate, based on information from UAMPS, we'll have a couple of more formal action items next month, and we'll touch base on those when we get to the UAMP side of things. As far as things going on, we've reported on this multiple times, that we're getting closer and closer with SITLA on getting this new substation site by exit 13. In fact, I believe the city will be cutting the check to them within the next week or so. So we should be able to get most of that wrapped up here shortly. There's 2 easements that will be needed along the parkway that aren't city-owned land right now. They've already sold a couple of smaller parcels. We've got one of those signed. I got word back this week, and the remaining one hopefully will happen in the next 2 or 3 weeks. So we'll have the land part of that project taken care of. The new exit on Main Street, or exit 11 is what I'm calling it at this point. The design's pretty well done on our relocation. We have received a letter from UDOT that we're okay to proceed with purchasing long lead items, and those will be the new transmission poles. We'll need 2 or 3 of those. The wire is a ways out, and probably some of the switch gear. And we've already issued the PO for the conduit for the directional bores that we'll do under the freeway. They're wanting, last word we got is they were going to be advertising somewhere around November and hope to start moving dirt somewhere around the first of the year. So their hope was to have most of the utilities relocated before they start. And that's when I said, well, in order to do that, most of our stuff right now is 6 months to a year. So you got to give us the go ahead. And so they did that. And so we'll, and so hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll get the steel poles and the wire out to bid and get that stuff coming for that project. So
Is that, remind me, is that substation getting moved?
no, it's not.
So that's
The
remaining
interchange,
intact
actually, you
there.
go up and just before you get there, it will turn and be
Okay.
further to the west.
Further to the west, okay.
And then it kind of arcs back and comes back into the Main Street Buena Vista intersection. So, and it gives them a more perpendicular intersection with the freeway than it currently does. So, and they have some requirements for that. So, fortunately, the sub
Nothing.
won't be affected directly, but there are some transmission poles around there, and quite a bit of the distribution exiting the sub we have to rework. So, and they're covering, UDOT is covering all of our costs to relocate that as part of their project. Kind of coupled with that, we and Nikki and Jessica know all too well, supply chain issues continue to be a real challenge for us. Transformers were the first big hit, you know, just the one in your backyard, either on the pole or pad mount that you see in the developments. What was it, Nikki? We've seen them as high as 60 plus weeks. And we did get one with a quicker delivery, but it was about 3 times the normal price. So there's some of that going on. Wires deliveries moving out. So we've been pretty aggressive, I guess, for lack of a better term, on trying to make sure we have inventory. We've had some of the suppliers say, we've got this in stock. We hear it's going way out. So we're stocking more than we normally would, just to try to protect ourselves as best we can, because we don't know if this is going to go on for 6 months, a year, 2 years. It's just really changed the dynamics. Normally we could get most things within 6 to 8 weeks. So 6 to 8 versus 60 to 80 is a big difference, and hard to predict what you're going to need that far out. So that's an ongoing challenge. As far as our load level, the April peak was just over 20 megawatts, May at 34, and yesterday we were at 36, and I expect the rest of this week with the temperatures will probably be in the 40, low 40 range as that goes. So wholesale pricing remains higher than typical, which unfortunately I think is going to be the new normal or new typical going forward. And usually one of the things we've noticed in just even this past month or so, there's 2 different periods when you buy a typical power product. They call it high load hours, which is 16 hours from about 8 o'clock till 11 at night, or however that works. And then there's the 8 hour, there's the remaining 8 hours they call low load or low load hours. Generally, there's a pretty big spread between those costs. And now they're almost identical. There's not really much of a savings at night. And the other interesting, we saw some futures out for like next March and April that the high load hours were even cheaper than the low load hours. So part of that I think is because of solar. That's when it gets flooded. So it's gonna drive the cost down because the supply is higher during those hours. So it's really changed the dynamics of what our traditional pricing and has been for years. And so ourselves, UAMPS, we're working our way through that on how that affects us. So we did make a small additional purchase beyond the one we reported on last time for June, July, and August and September. This one is a little different because it's tied to a trading hub price. So they guarantee the energy, but we don't know the price. So it's whatever that trading hub is plus a margin to keep that guarantee there. So we'll have quite a mix of different contracts this summer, and we'll see how that plays out in the future. So
Is there a cap on that?
there is not.
There's not.
Otherwise, we'd be exposed to the market anyway, and we may not have the capacity. So that's what the advantage. And I think it was $7 a megawatt hour for June and 10.5 for July, August, and September was the premium to have that reserve capacity. So again, that was a new product, and we did 3 megawatts in June and 2 the other 3 months. So it wasn't a large purchase, but it'll get us an idea of whether that was a positive thing or a negative thing.
And who is that purchase?
I think it was through Broomfield, who UAMPS bought it through. So
Oh.
there was us and I think 4 other entities in UAMPS that they aggregated into one purchase. So, which is what most of our bulk purchases, our 5-year contracts, that way it's a combination of multiple entities. We completed, since we didn't have our May meeting, we did complete our generator testing in April. We have to do that every 3 years.
Recording in progress.
So the next time that'll be due is in 2025, and the testing went well. Jake and Tyler and Mike have went through all the swamp coolers, which basically cools the air at least a little bit before it goes into the engine. They basically blow right on the intake of the engine. We put CAT came out with a new spark plug model about 1.5 years ago, and so as they were failing, we'd put in the new one. And in talking to CAT, they recommended we change them all so they're all the new style plugs. Of course, they've introduced a new style since then, but so hopefully that'll help with some of the nuisance trips that we've had in the past. And in fact, we started running today about 3 o'clock. It was our first bigger run of the season, and I'd anticipate most days that we'll be running, especially with temperatures like we're seeing this week. So any questions on that so far?
Prices are probably gonna hurt us on that, right? On the generators.
Right now, what they're showing is about $125 a megawatt hour if we were to buy it on the market, and we're generating for about 90. Gas prices have stayed. This time last year, Jake went back and checked. We were about $3 a decatherm. We're at 8.5 right now. So again, it's all you got to do is go drive by a gas pump.
Yeah.
And that kind of similar issues. It's all interrelated to that. So the one good thing is, I guess, Misery Loves Company. We did buy a decent purchase for the summer, like in July for $190 a megawatt hour. The forwards on that now, if we were to go buy it, was in the upper 200s, and in August it's actually almost approaching 300. So we made a good decision
Back
on
then.
those.
Good.
So again, you don't know until after the fact if you
You got a good
made
deal.
the right choice, but so far it's looking like we made the right choice. It's still very expensive.
Sure.
Don't get me wrong, but it could be worse, I guess. As far as projects, I don't know if you've noticed, there've been quite a bit of time spent on a 300 North rebuild, somewhat similar to what we did on 100 South a couple years ago. And they actually just pulled the wire in this morning. So all the poles are up, the wire's pulled, they'll sag it in tomorrow and then start energizing that and transferring load. And that'll give us a much stronger tie between two of our circuits that we haven't had, between 300 East to Main Street. So that'll be a good addition. They've done lots of smaller couple poles on a block, repairs, replacements, and most of their focus has been on small projects like that. Dave, can I get you to swap to my screen for a sec? This was called in by a customer down on 100 East. They reported that there were some balloons on the line and they were buzzing. Fortunately, this didn't cause an outage. These are what we don't like. We despise Mylar balloons because of the havoc they create. So fortunately, like I say, the customer called and we were able to catch it before it caused a problem. So they went up and were able to successfully remove it without any issues. This is a transformer that they removed from service. This is what happens when dirt gets piled up against it and sprinklers, it rusts through, then the oil leaks out, and then it fails.
How many of those transformers do we have in reserve? I mean, replacing things like this.
There's various sizes. We probably have 50 to 60. Again, we have and
Sure.
we're trying
80
to get
weeks
ahead.
out.
And, yeah, we have some that are coming in next year, and so we're trying to outguess that. And I think we're in good shape based on historical.
Mhm.
When this all started, Nikki went back through and we looked at how many we had used basically in the last 2 years, kind of use that as a gauge. The other thing we've had since we last met, a car hit one of them. Those kind of things are really hard to predict.
Sure.
So I think we're in good shape, but if it continues, obviously makes you a little bit nervous. So the Main Street substation switching project, we've gotten drawings back from ICPE and return comments, and so hopefully we'll be starting to order the steel and switches for that. Again, construction's going to be highly dependent on when we can get materials, and concrete's in short supply around here right now, so that could play into it when we get a contractor on board to do that. It's a challenging time to be building things right now. I usually report on how many solar applications have come in. In April we had 6, in May we had 12, and so far this month we've had 1. So probably on average about 10 a month we've been seeing, which is a pretty good clip for a system our size. So we still do get complaints from customers frustrated with what they've been told by their solar companies. And Nikki and Jessica do a great job of working with them and helping them understand how it works. We've debated should we meet with the customers when the application comes through? But unfortunately, by the time that happens, they've probably already signed up with the company. So it's a bit of a
Like
challenge.
with the base charges, or what are they? I'm just curious. I mean, you have solar, right, Todd?
Most of the problem is the solar companies sell it as a net metering, a true net meter program, meaning if you consume 200 kilowatt hours and you produce 200 kilowatt hours, you don't have any. We don't do it that way because there is a time factor of when that's produced. So if they consume 100 from us, we bill them normally. If they send us 100 back, we give them 4 cents. And so there'll always be a difference. They're always going to be using our system unless you have batteries. I think you've got batteries on yours. And even then, I think you're going
Gonna draw a
use
little
it at
bit.
some point in time too, particularly during the summer.
Sure. Okay.
So we do have customers occasionally call, and we try to walk them through, help them understand, and by and large, we're able to, even when they're frustrated, at least the frustration may be directed in the correct direction.
Sure.
If that's the right.
At least understand. At least they have an understanding of.
And we're working
What's
on adding
happening?
more to the website. There's a slideshow presentation, tells them some ideas of what to ask. Working on a video too, trying just a little bit of how our program works. Trying to put as much
And
out.
yeah,
there as we
establishes
can.
expectations up front. So
Yeah.
So
They
that
know
if
what to
they
expect.
actually, if they do some homework, they
Mhm.
can find it, and it's
Yeah,
a little
that's good.
more explained to them, and rather than just reading the ordinance.
Yeah. So we're trying to educate them, but that's, like I say, kind of an ongoing issue
So
or
ultimately,
challenge.
do you feel that solar will benefit us as a city if, as residences, turn more to solar? Or, I mean, there's still the concern with peak hours and everything else, and when the hours are when power is generated. But if they do battery backups and that sort of thing, will that eventually help the city with having to buy less power?
Of course, I mean, any that they produce, to serve their own load or even export back to us, does reduce what we have to purchase. The difference is, and we'll get into the solar projects with UAMPS, but we have, I think, just under 2 megawatts if you aggregated everybody's system, and I think we're approaching about 300 systems to get to that. And so overall, it's a fairly small amount. You have a lot of small pieces to aggregate that in versus, on Steel 1B, we got 5 megawatts, and it's just a power purchase. So it's simpler to buy it at the utility scale, but yeah, I mean, there's definitely benefits, and I think that's why we have the program in place. And
But the amount is so small that
right now, if we have 2 megawatts out of 50, what is that, about 4%? And again, that's based on the peak rating, and they're really only there for a short period of time if they even hit it, because a lot of the applications coming through, we see them on the west side of the
North
buildings,
side or
the
something,
north
yeah.
side. They will produce, but they're certainly not going to be at what their nameplate rating, and that's what our total is based on, is kind of a nameplate rating. And we have, since we did the new policy in July, we've implemented, or we're requiring the production meters, which helps us when people call to get a better handle of what their system's doing. And so I think that will help in the long run too. So, and I think they'll get their most bang for the buck if they do batteries, because then they can off shift it. However, it obviously costs more to put those batteries in. So you just got to evaluate it. And that's where I feel bad, is when people, obviously they have a responsibility to do their own research, but if they just trust some of the companies, not all of them, they get told a different story, like that they'll never have a bill and da 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 da. And, you know, Nikki's heard all kinds of stories. And that's where I feel bad is they got duped to a certain extent. You know, there's nothing wrong with the technology. It works, but the financial side sometimes isn't what they were led to believe. So if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is, kind of thing. So we're working on our underground standards update. Nikki's getting pretty close to getting the new draft of that ready. Same with the pole attachment. She got the updated document to me, I think, yesterday, and I'll probably use that as reading material on my plane back to APPA conference later this week. So one of the other interesting things that we had this last week, Public Works has, you've probably noticed up on Buena Vista by where the Chevron is, or used to be, there by exit 10, they're redoing that. Well, years and years ago, when that substation was put in, there was a conduit bank installed to the west. Well, when they had pushed all the dirt out for that area of the road just west of the substation, they actually ended up burying a sewer manhole. And so when they put the conduits in, it wasn't marked. The conduits went right over the top of it. Hey, Craig, were you not able to get on?
No, I was. I just was in route. So
Oh, okay. Well, welcome. So this project was interesting. So this manhole is right here. And as part of the road relocation project, and I'd done this once over in St. George, something similar, but they excavated. So the conduit used to run basically where that guy is, right over the top of this manhole, and then back this way. And so they excavated it out 10, 15 feet to the north. And fortunately, it used to bow kind of this way, and they were able to pull it back and make it bow the other way. So we were able to, those conductors and everything remained energized, and they just were able to pull it over. So it turned out really as good as we could have expected. And then now they can put a normal manhole there. And again, it was just nobody did it intentionally. It's just Mike was telling me were trying to find, they ran a camera up and it was like, well, there's a manhole here. And when they found it, then the conduits went right by the side. So we were able to correct that problem. So that was an interesting one this last month. So, and hats off to the contractor, and they did a good job. And it was actually, they did it in basically less than a day, and it worked really well. Our safety meeting this last month was on confined space. We have switch basements underneath our switches, and so the crews have a little monitor they take down there. It's good to remind everybody of what you need to do in those confined spaces. Braden, one of our newer linemen, he's been with us since January, somewhere around there. January, February. Anyway, he passed his 4th year step test, so he's got one more test a year from now, and then he'll be a journeyman lineman. So that was great to see his success there. They did a rebuild in the Pioneer Circle area. Some poles down on Geneva. Precast is expanding their operations, so they installed a couple new poles there in conjunction with that project. And again, the 300 North has been a lot of their focus this last month. So a lot of switching and making sure we're ready for summer, and we think we are as best we can, and we monitor the system and see how things are going. Wayne gives me lots of items, and I'm trying to hit the bigger ones. Jake, as far as the substations, he's went through and has done he does a monthly sub check, and no significant issues there. there was a small leak on the transformer at Buena Vista, and we were afraid we'd have to completely change the valve, which means you'd have to bring somebody in to drain the oil out. And but he was able to get under there with a crescent wrench and turned it about a quarter turn, and it seemed to have stopped. So that's a lot cheaper than bringing somebody in. Outage, as we did pretty well. There was one that we did have conductors slapped together in the wind, and it affected about 150 customers for a short period. So we have had a pretty windy spring.
And really windy.
It has.
Yeah.
So that's all on the local stuff. Any questions from anyone? Anyone online with questions?
I don't.
You guys asleep?
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay. The May meetings, Jeremy covered for me at UAMPS. My wife made me go to Hawaii, so
Oh,
you know,
Oh,
it
it's
was,
tough.
it was a hard choice there.
About that.
yeah.
So a lot of it I've gleaned from his notes and other notes that UAMPS publishes. One of the bigger items at UAMPS is, and I was involved with the interview process on this, is Mason Baker will be the new CEO, general manager come January 1st. He's currently the legal counsel for UAMPS. He's been with them for about 11 years. He's older than his picture looks. We always tease him about that, but he's a very, very sharp. Huh? Catfish? Oh. And he has some really big shoes to fill. Doug Hunter's, been with UAMPS for 40 plus years, lots of industry experience. And I think Mason's very capable. He's got a lot to learn and big shoes to fill. And what this will do in the 6 months until the official transition takes place, it will allow them to find a new legal counsel that would take Mason's current position and give some time to do that. And I think it'll provide some with great continuity amongst the staff. And so we're excited for Mason, and he'll do a great job. And he hopes to get around to meet all the power boards and city councils. That's a pretty tall order when you got a busy job and you got 50 members to try to get around. But as he does that, we'll make you aware. And
I think he presented up in Oregon.
he probably did. I know he was on the trip.
Attorney was, yeah.
Yeah.
The attorney, yeah, I think it was him. Very, very sharp. I was really impressed with him.
Yeah, he definitely has the attorney mind, and which is good. And he's done a great, and he's very familiar with all the projects because of that. And in fact, I was looking at the APPA conference. In fact, he's presenting with New Scale on one of the breakout sessions at the APPA National Conference as well. Excuse me. So our next UAMPS meetings will be held in conjunction with that in Nashville next week. So we talked actually about the summer purchases already. On the Central St. George project, which is again with our local project with St. George, Santa Clara, and Hurricane. Not a whole lot of new developments there. Rocky Mountain was able to get the remedial action scheme in place for this summer. It was active last week, which provides a little higher level of reliability. Yesterday, we actually had it was a kind of a first meeting with the four of us and kind of brainstorming of ways that we can maybe share resources. One of the primary discussions was the generators that everybody has, how to maximize those. If we're short on power and St. George has some extra, it might make more sense to buy direct from them instead of on the wholesale market, and vice versa. Their units are larger, and if they only need a small amount, maybe it makes sense for us to run, if they have a need. So we're pursuing options like that of how to maybe maximize the investments that we have, and system planning in the area, and those kind of things. So it was it was spearheaded by Lori at St. George, and I think there should be some good fruit that comes out of that, and we'll probably have more periodic. And it's good to talk to others that, when maybe they've already solved the problem that we're running into, and not have to reinvent the wheel, everybody at a time. So the Payson Nebo project, the natural gas plant there in the north exit of Payson. April, it was off almost the entire month because of some cracks in the combustion turbine, and they really did a good job. Fortunately, they had the spare parts available to get a crew in. They had to scramble to find one that was qualified to come in. They had to take the turbine apart and put the new parts in. So it was down for most of a month, which that was an unplanned outage on that. But it's back up online. Fortunately, I'd rather have it then than right now during the summer. They've been running about 16 hours a day typically, but as power prices go up and loads come up, I anticipate they'll gradually move more to a 24/7 run on that plant. The Vail plant, it had its issues in the fall. It's been running well. We get usually from a half to about 500 to 800 kilowatts out of it, and so it's been doing well. It's Achilles heel, or it's dictated by what Kern River does. If they're not compressing gas, they don't have the waste heat. But it seems to be pretty consistent right now. On the government and public affairs project, Mike Squires, and we've had some discussions with a consultant back in Washington, D.C. of pursuing some opportunities to get some grant funding, possibly that we could use towards AMI metering. It's more automated, where we wouldn't have to send Donna out. It would actually, you can have them read every day, it's the communications is always there, and they can be set up to where, utility office, somebody needs the power turned on, you can actually do that remotely. There's a switch in the meter that would control that. So we're looking to see what opportunities that are there. In fact, Nikki has a call on Thursday.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to see what.
And hopefully we could tap into. We've Mike and Jake have actually had some meetings with 3 or 4 suppliers, and the project would probably be roughly about $2 million project, because you'd have to change out all 10 and 11,000 meters we have.
Is that something that the customer would be able to tie in? And
yes, that's the idea, that you could
watch your usage,
right,
and monitor it.
And I really think in the not too distant future, and I think we've talked about this, that at some point, some form of time of use rates may come into play. Mm-hmm. And then that would give them the information they need, how much I'm using at this time of day. And
that would be.
And so it would be kind of setting us up to be able to do that. Right now, we couldn't do time of use rates with the meters we have. So it's regardless of whether or not we are successful in getting the grant, I think that's on our fairly near horizon to move towards that. So we'll keep you posted on that. The drought and hydro production is obviously a concern. And again, we don't have a lot on the Colorado, but as that dries up, it makes people that aren't normally in the market search for power, and that drives the price up. So we've got a perfect storm on several things going On our solar projects with UAMPS, we have three. The Red Mesa is the one with the Navajo Nation. It was originally scheduled to be online this fall. Between supply issues, interface with Rocky Mountain, that looks like it'll be pushed out to April of next year and possibly as late as October, which means we'd miss another summer. The biggest kicker is they're coming back requesting a price increase on what we've already signed. And on the surface, you'd say, and there are penalty clauses in the contract. On the surface, we'd say, well, let's just exercise that. But they've actually looked at, what are our options? Well, with Rocky Mountain, they've pretty much said there's no more capacity available on their system. So there's nowhere else to turn a different project. And the price, even with what they're asking for, and they're still negotiating that, so I don't really want to get into specifics, is still a good price for us. But they're trying to make sure and say, okay, we're done at this point. You can't come back again, kind of thing. So, and their plan is to present that at our meetings next week, to where we'd, as a PMC, approve that, and then we'd bring that back to the governing boards. It would be Power Board at our July meeting, and then City Council, one of the 2 meetings in July. So close cousin to that is our steel solar projects, 1A and 1B. They too are requesting a higher price point, but not as dramatic as the Red Mesa. And it's also moving out to December of next year, so we'd miss another summer. And 1B, depending on transmission issues with Rocky Mountain, it could be as late as 2025. So the impact with that is we're planning on resources being there, and they keep getting kicked out. And again, this one, it looked like they were roughly around a 10% increase is what they're looking for, but the same kind of, thing. And they hope to propose that as well approve that next week. So those would be the 2 main action items that I anticipate, if we get through the UAMP side of things, we'd bring back next month. So not good news. I wish we had a quicker alternative. So, and a lot of that gets back into solar panels coming from China, and you saw Biden now says we can get them from Vietnam and other places to somehow circumvent some of what's going on. So there are a lot of projects that are in the same boat, not just ours. So the Enchant project, I really don't have much of an update on that. Hopefully they can give some more definitive. I know they're in negotiations. The transmission issues there on that's the one that's in 2026 it's a coal plant that would convert to carbon capture technology at that point in time, so it would be considered green. And again, that one has its challenges that I was surprised to find that they have transmission issues since it's an existing plant, but since it was scheduled to go offline, more or less they've sold or used that capacity elsewhere, and now we're coming in asking some. And UAMPS is part of a larger, we're only one of many of the PPAs in that project. So again, it's challenging to find resources that aren't just growing on trees out there. The Muddy Creek, which is the heat recovery project, very similar. Well, it's the same technology that we have at Vale. The main item that's left to go through, well, a couple items. The main one is getting the agreement done with Kern River. This plant is on their main compressor station at the start of their whole system. So they're very nervous. If, say, the heat recovery module was to do something to inhibit their ability to compress and sell gas, so they're asking for an insurance policy on that. So UAMPS is working through that to try to figure out what level of impact that will have on the pricing. And along with that, Ormat, who's the manufacturer of that system, is reviewing all the costs for the project, and so they'll come out with a new levelized cost of energy pro forma, hopefully in the next month or so, and we'll bring that back and we'll see where that goes. So originally it was in the 50s. I suspect it will be higher than that because of those two items, with everything going on in construction, as well as I'm guessing that that insurance policy isn't going to be cheap. So so those are the two main items on that. So I think I've already covered those. On the hydro, the Bureau of Reclamation, you may have seen, has developed a plan to release some of the water, like from Flaming Gorge, some of the upper basin dams, to keep Lake Powell hopefully viable for this summer. And it also obviously affects Mead. But we're getting tight on, I think they were down to 25 feet above the penstock, so that's getting really close. Shifting from resources, we brought this, I think reported on it, it was probably 6-8 months ago. A project, there's a company called Gridware that's a new company that they're developing a monitor that you can mount on a pole, and it listens to ambient sounds and stuff, and they claim they can identify problems before they actually occur. You know, because if you have a loose connector, it'll buzz and those kind of things, and it should be sensitive enough. So there's ourselves and 3 other cities that applied for a grant with APPA, and we got a 50-50 match on that. And we'll be deploying 50 of those monitors here probably in the next 3 to 4 months. And so it's kind of an experimental leading edge technology. And so they want to deploy it. So they've done small samples, but this would be the next sample size up. And so it was good to get the grant money with APPA to do that. So that'll be interesting to see how effective it is. So.
So that's 50-50, we pay 50 and they
Yeah,
pay 50,
and
the grant pays 50?
Correct. Our part of our 50% of the 50 poles is 13,600. So it's not, it's a good chunk of change, but not huge. But if we can identify a problem, and it'll monitor the pole movement and wind and those kind of things. And so if you start seeing it move more, that might be a sign you've got a problem with the pole, and before it comes down. And so you could make up that cost if it identifies one problem. So pretty quickly. So I think the last is just the CFPP, and we've got a good report on that. And I guess the main thing on the CFPP project is that as far as the project development, on-site work, the COLA application, everything seems to be on track, at or under budget, and on time, which are all great things. Todd mentioned that New Scale went public on the day they were up there. And again, that should give them more stability and infusing some capital there. I'll quickly, and this is the slide deck UAMP sends out. They continue to have ongoing engagement with the NRC and the DOE leaders. So it's not like they just dumped this 1 million-page document on them. They've seen it over the course of however many years it takes to get there. And so they're trying to engage up front the NRC as much as possible and they basically did the same tour that our guys did, and so they could see it firsthand. Same kind of thing is they seem to be appreciative of the outreach and keeping them up to speed all through the process. To be honest, I'm not sure what the PS suspension or testing is. I know it's seismic and site related, and looks like it was what some of the work they had to postpone or delay until after migration of birds through the area, and then that'll resume in July. I think this is probably the biggest item that's coming up is the Class 3 estimate, which is the next major estimate of the project. And internally to Fluor is the June 27th, and then it gets shipped on to others to review. I believe it's in August is when it'll actually be presented to UAMP. So again, they try to refine that estimate as much detail as possible with the best information available, which will give us another cost test at the end of that. And then again, depending on the results of that, we have a decision to proceed or not to proceed with the project. And again, the owner's side of things, part that New Scale or Fluor wouldn't provide, UAMPS is working on getting those costs into it. This is the licensing. Looked like they had a couple hiccups with some of the geotech with the national lab, but they've developed ways to make that up and keep things on track. So Sean does a great job. I've been very impressed with him, and if you can read some of those fine prints, those are all the different chapters that go into I think this makes up the 1 million pages kind of thing. So they're showing here that they're 18.9% done, and we're planned to be 14.6. So again, I don't know how they come up with that precise of percentages, but they're on track or a little bit ahead on getting that documentation together. There's another report there. It shows it 3,100 pages. So if you need some easy reading, we can probably get you some. One of the areas that they are looking at to try to expedite the project is areas where they could get authorization to do some of the site work ahead of the full permit, not to do, I think, major things that would be super cost intensive, but items that would keep the project moving forward easy once they get to that point, without huge cost impacts. So that's just a tool to make sure things are kept on site. So again, a lot of the work that's been done, in fact, all the work on site has just been site characterization of all kinds of stuff. So Xcel Energy is the selected operator, and that's one of, I think, the main things that will be in this cost estimate that we didn't have before is they'll have the input from the operator before. I mean, they had some ideas and some consultation, but these guys, they operate nuke plants, and they'll be able to feed that, how many personnel they need and staffing and all those kind of requirements. So that will really help in this next test that will be coming up shortly. And it looks like that's it on that, and that's really pretty much all I have tonight. Again, I appreciate all that and your time and efforts, and next
UAM's
month
planning a convention,
pardon?
is UAM's planning a conference the end of the summer?
It will be in August in Logan, and we'll send out invites to that. It'll be, they rotate from Logan to Jackson to Tahoe and Heber. There are the 4 places they rotate around, and this year it will be in Logan. So when I get more details, I can give you the dates. So if you're able to attend, and this one I think's probably one of the more, if you're able to swing your schedule, is beneficial. Why don't I have that? Excuse me. It's August 14th, which is a Sunday. They'll mostly travel day, and I think they do a little dinner reception thing on Sunday night. And then the 15th, 16th are the main days with, if you're a real glutton for punishment, you can stay for the UAMPS meetings on the Wednesday, but most of the power board and the council leave Tuesday night or Wednesday morning. So 14th to 17th is, so if you're able to kind of clear your slate out, that would be great. Again, would cover your motel and travel costs up there. So if you're able and willing to spend that time, so.
Great.
What? August 14th to 17th, and I know.
I wonder if school starts. Yeah, I think I wonder if that's the same.
Yeah,
Well, usually school starts now on like a Thursday but still, I think
they
I think it's that
actually
first
looked at
week.
trying to move it because it hits right around when school starts for a lot of people, and no matter where they tried to move it, there was a conflict.
something.
In July, everybody's on vacation, and so they just
Set a
kept
date.
it back to there. So, but again, if you can mark those dates, that would be terrific. We'd love to have you go, and you can also they make it family friendly and have activities for the
Oh, the
family
11th?
and stuff as
Oh.
well.
Oh, so it's the week out, just the following week. Okay.
So,
All right.
okay, any questions on any of the UAMPs or any other items? Feedback that we need to hear, that you're hearing? Again, welcome. We're heading into the hot time of year and the larger bills. So, and Nikki's gonna have in the newsletter, just some reminders to keep your thermostat up, make sure your air conditioner's running well. Just all the basic things, but it's good to have a reminder on that. So,
No, I don't have any other questions.
Thank you, Rick. No, yeah, there's a lot going on, and what, are we gonna hit 100 this week? So
5, 7, yeah.
it's gonna be ugly. So, any questions, comments?
I don't.
Okay. I think so. With July, we skipped the July meeting, correct? Because it would be July 5th. Or did we have that on there?
yeah, it's July 5th.
So it is scheduled for the 5th, which is.
It is scheduled for the 5th.
Mhm.
Okay. We'll probably need to definitely keep that on because those two UAMPS issues will be up. Okay. All right. So our next meeting is July 5th. So mark that down on your calendars. And obviously we do have, as Rick said, we've got two issues and items that we're going to have to definitely look at and recommend to the board. So thank you. Thank you. If there's no other questions or comments, I'd like to motion adjourn.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
So Todd motioned and Andy seconded. So Mark, do you want to start a vote?
How's our eye?
Todd,
Spriggs, aye.
Andy,
Palmer, aye.
and Dinsmore, aye. Okay, thank you, everybody. Sorry I wasn't able to be there.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.